the night they tried to bury my daughter. It was nearly midnight when I fell to my knees in the damp grass of Willow Creek Park, my fingers tearing into the earth like a man possessed. My hands bled, my breath came in gasps, but I couldn't stop. Somewhere beneath the cold dirt, my paralyzed daughter, Emily, was fighting to survive, buried alive by someone I'd once called a neighbor. Just hours earlier, I'd pushed her wheelchair along the park's winding path, a routine we cherished. I stepped away for 5 minutes, 5 minutes to grab her notebook from the house. When I returned, her chair lay toppled, and Emily was gone. The truth was worse than any nightmare. The president of our homeowners association, Helen Carver, had done this, her hatred for my daughter's disability driving her to an act so vile it still chills me. If I hadn't heard Emily's faint cry, if the police hadn't arrived when they did, I wouldn't be here telling this story. I'm Frank Sullivan, a 62-year-old retired paramedic from Franklin, Tennessee, and this is how I fought for justice. I'd spent 30 years saving lives, pulling people from car wrecks, restarting hearts, delivering babies in the back of ambulances. But nothing prepared me for the night I had to dig my child out of the ground. After my wife, Linda, died 6 years ago, I moved Emily and me to Maple Grove, a quiet suburban neighborhood with tidy lawns and white picket fences. I wanted a safe place for Emily, my 14-year-old daughter, to grow up. She's bright, with a laugh that lights up a room, but life hasn't been easy for her. 3 years ago, a distracted driver plowed into us at an intersection. I walked away with bruises. Emily lost the use of her legs. A T6 spinal injury. The doctors called it complete paralysis from the chest down. Emily spent months in rehab, learning to navigate a world that wasn't built for her. But she's a fighter. She found solace in writing poetry, filling notebooks with verses about stars, rivers, and girls who soared despite their chains. Every evening, I'd will her to Willow Creek Park, where we'd sit by the pond, watching fireflies dance. She'd write, I'd listen, and for a while, the world felt right. At first, Maple Grove welcomed us. Neighbors brought casseroles, complimented Emily's poems. But when Helen Carver took over as HOA president, the warmth faded. Helen was the picture of suburban perfection, flawless auburn hair, tailored blouses, always clutching a monogrammed water bottle. She ran bake sales, organized block parties, and quoted HOA bylaws like a preacher with a Bible. But behind her smile was a cold edge. She decided Emily's wheelchair disrupted the aesthetic of Maple Grove. She'd send notices about scuff marks on the sidewalk, complain that Emily's ramp clashed with the neighborhood's curb appeal. Once, she suggested we consider more suitable housing for families with limitations. I bit my tongue for Emily's sake. She was my world. Her mother's death had bound us closer than ever. I cooked her meals, read her poems aloud, and carried her when the ramp was slick with rain. I'd do anything to keep her safe. But Helen's hostility grew. She'd watch us from her porch, her eyes narrowing when Emily laughed too loudly. Anonymous notes appeared in our mailbox. People like you don't fit here. I knew they were from her. Her prim handwriting was unmistakable. I started keeping records, every violation, every snide remark. I even installed a discreet camera on Emily's wheelchair after Helen began lingering too close, her words dripping with false concern. My gut screamed she was trouble, but I never imagined she'd go this far. That night, a crisp October evening, Emily had just finished a poem about a hawk circling the moon. She wanted to revise it, so I parked her chair under the park's big sycamore tree and jogged home to grab her notebook. I was gone for 7 minutes. When I returned, her chair was overturned, and her blanket was in the dirt. My heart stopped. Emily, I shouted, searching. Then I heard Edam's muffled cry. Dad, help. It came from the ground. I dropped to my knees, clawing at the soil near the tree. Emily, I'm here. I dug until my fingers hit her sweater, then her face, pale and dirt-streaked, her eyes wide with terror. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe well. I pulled her free, cradling her as she gasped. I dialed 911, my voice shaking. Someone buried my daughter alive. Get here now. Police and paramedics arrived fast. They gave Emily oxygen, checked her vitals. She's lucky, they said. A few more minutes, and I couldn't hear the rest. When an officer asked who might have done this, I pointed to Helen Carver. He raised an eyebrow, the HOA lady, but I had proof. Back home, I showed them the wheelchair footage. It was chilling. Helen approached Emily, saying something sharp, then yanking her from the chair. Emily screamed, but Helen dragged her behind the tree, dug with a garden trowel, and covered her with dirt. The officers' faces hardened. "This is sick," one muttered. They arrested Helen that night. She stood in her doorway, cool as ice, claiming she was protecting property values. Her words burned. "That girl doesn't belong here, Mr. Sullivan." Emily spent days in the hospital, haunted by nightmares. I never left her side, holding her hand as she slept. Neighbors, once distant, brought meals and apologies. Some admitted Helen had bullied them to a veteran fined for his therapy dog, a mom harassed over her son's autism. I realized we weren't alone, but I wasn't done fighting. I'd saved lives under pressure before. I could do it again. I gathered every piece of evidence: Helen's notices, emails, even those hateful notes. I called neighbors, collecting stories of her abuse. A couple, the Harrisons, shared how she'd fined them for unsightly garden gnomes. A single dad said she'd threatened to report his daughter for skateboarding. By week's end, I had 12 sworn statements. I also reached out to an old colleague, Tom Bradley, now a state investigator. When I told him about Emily, he acted fast, launching a probe into Maple Grove's HOA for ADA violations and civil rights abuses. The media swarmed. I gave one interview, standing by Emily's toppled chair in the park. "I've saved strangers from death," I said, voice steady. "But digging my daughter out of the ground? That's a scar no father should bear." The story went viral. People from Helen's past Emergita former neighbor said she'd tried to evict a family with a deaf child. Another claimed she'd harassed a veteran in a wheelchair. Helen wasn't just cruel, she was a predator. In court, her lawyer argued she was mentally unwell, that she only meant to scare Emily. The jury didn't buy it. The wheelchair footage was damning, as were the testimonies from neighbors and victims of her past. Emily, brave beyond her years, spoke at the trial, her voice clear. "I'm not invisible. I'm a person,